awfully full.
Good evening, everyone. If we would, let's take a moment and reflect in silence and for about 30 seconds or so. All righty, thank you very much, and we'll officially call the meeting to order. This is our regular monthly meeting, and officially welcome all of you. I do see some faces that may not have been here before, and remind everyone that that corner of the room in the back are documents that would help you follow the meeting, and agenda and so forth. And also, if you do not hear well, if you raise your hand, we'll speak better, more clearly, and more loudly into the microphone so that you can hear. So don't be embarrassed. Just raise your hand if you can't hear, and we'll do better. And with that, again, welcome to all of you. And we will now stand and pledge allegiance to the flag, which is to my right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Number 4 on the agenda is the consideration of approving the agenda as presented. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The agenda is approved. And then we'll turn our attention to number 5, the consideration of approving the minutes. Chair would consider a motion to approve A, B, C, and D if not objected to. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is to approve all A, B, C, and D minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. All the minutes are approved as presented. Number 6, public comments on agenda items. This is an opportunity for the public to speak to items on the agenda specifically noted on the agenda as topics of the night. And at the end of the meeting is an opportunity for the public to speak to any topic you want to speak about. But right now, number 6 on the agenda is public comments on agenda items, and we have 7 people who have signed up as required by procedure of the town. Ann Arnold, you are the first one up. I'm going by the order that was signed in.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I'm deeply troubled by the decision made by you to accept the recommendation by the town manager to adopt the highest possible system development fee allowed by an engineered report. The devil is in the details, details which obviously were not examined closely before making the decision to adopt Resolution 18-05. The system development fee adopted by the town commissioners is disastrous and based on flawed information. The townspeople showed up on August the 6th to convey their disappointment and disagreement, and we know that the commissioners have heard from several since that time and before that time of the August 6th meeting by email or indirect conversation. Excuse me. The commissioners have the ability to rectify this problem, and they should do it now. To continue this illegal assessment even for another day will cause problems and a catastrophic ripple effect across our community. The commissioners need to get rid of the current system development fee and form a citizens advisory committee to be involved in the process to fix it, as they should have been invited on the onset. I'm simply one person who has a vested interest in making sure this flawed and illegal system development fee is fixed. But I ask all in this room who agree with me to stand up and show some solidarity. We expect and hope you do the right thing. Thank you for your service.
Mr. Tyler Newman.
Good evening, my name is Tyler Newman, and I work for an organization called BASE, which is Business Alliance for a Sound Economy.
Excuse me just a minute. Those of you in the audience and in the room, would you please turn your sound producing equipment off? Thank you.
I work for BASE, which is an advocacy organization based in Wilmington. We've got partnerships with the Brunswick County Association of Realtors and the Brunswick County Home Builders Association. I sent y'all a letter on Friday expressing our concerns with the system development fees. I think you heard pretty passionately just a minute ago about some of the concerns with the fees. I think it's a trickle-down effect when you have such high fees. It's not just going to be the builders that come in or the new homeowners. If the town's not collecting the fees, there, business impacts, visitor impacts, current citizen impacts, and it's something that we would encourage you to take a look at. Our ask is very specific. We would ask that you revert the fees back to how they were on June the 30th, and then engage a second opinion of the water and sewer fees study that you have. I think the nuance is that yours was done by an engineering firm. A lot of the other localities around the state that did theirs used an accounting firm. So I think we've seen some differences, and the next speaker is going to talk about that a little bit. Again, the fees, the purpose of the study was to set the maximum fee. You can set any amount below that. The amount that you had on June the 30th, at some point in time, y'all had voted on it was sufficient to cover the cost of the system as you had it. So we would argue that it is sufficient to move forward. As far as the study itself, setting up a relook at that, I think there's some duplicative costs in that. I think if you look at the Brunswick County study, there's a number in there of $30-something million for a wastewater treatment plant, and that appears in your study as well, so that may be something to look at. Looking at the gallons per day calculation, and then looking at pipe size versus bedrooms as far as the cost. But all those things can be sussed out while you've gone back and reverted the fees to how they were and let folks move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tim Mary, all dappered up tonight.
Yeah, all dappered up at the beach, I can do that. Thank you. My name is Tim Minton. I'm the Director of Government Affairs with the North Carolina Home Builders Association. And Mr. Mayor, we actually met a long time ago because I used to work for the North Carolina Association of Realtors a long time ago. So
We've seen each other a few times.
Yeah, so it's nice to come to your neck of the woods.
Thank you, sir.
The reason I'm here tonight is I was one of the folks that worked on House Bill 436, the capacity fees, and also worked on House Bill 826, which is passed this year, which was to make some clarifications to the system development fees. So I've been very involved across the state regarding the changes that we've seen in North Carolina. I worked with the North Carolina League of Municipalities and the County Commission Association, and our goal was to come up with a statewide system that all types of water systems and authorities could use. In fact, there are about 8 different types in the state who had different rules. So what we wanted to do was come up with a system that all municipalities and counties could use, whether they own the system or whether it was a water authority involved. And we really had 3 things that we were trying to do. One was to create a statewide system that created certainty for local governments for the future in terms of whether they had the authority or not the authority to charge system development fees. Also to create a financial system to determine what the maximum fees could be. And then also set up what we felt were reasonable and reliable fee system in North Carolina. So I just want to give you a couple. I've gotten reports from all over the state. I have local builder associations, people who will send me the reports. And so I just want to give you at least what I have seen across the state. When it comes to what the value, one of the things you have to do in terms of determining the fee is the value of a gallon of water or sewer use. The average I'm seeing across the state is $4 to $6 a gallon. When it comes to the gallons per day, the GPD that they use, the average I'm seeing is 200 to 240 gallons per day. In fact, the town of Concord did their own study with their system where they came up with the 200 gallons per day. The National Association that deals with water did a study with 50 municipalities, and they came up with less than 160 gallons per day. And that's mostly due to low flow toilets, everything that's in new construction now is much different than it was years years ago. In fact, town of Gastonia, when they were looking at their capacity, they reached out to the DEQ to ask if there was a way they could recalculate how much capacity they had in their system, and they gave them 75 gallons per bedroom. And so an average house is 3 bedrooms, 225 gallons per day, and that came from the state agency that oversees this. So what I've seen across the state in terms of the average fee for water is range from $800 to $1,500 for a 3/4 inch pipe, and for $1,500 to $2,500 for sewer for a 3/4 inch pipe. And that's pretty much what we've seen. There's only one place that I'm aware of that had that looked at a major increase in their water and sewer, and that was Franklin County, right outside of Raleigh. And that county commission has voted to delay doing anything until January, so they can look at it some more before they make a final decision. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Let's see, David?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Town Board of Commissioners. I'm David Bond. I'm not a builder. I'm a homeowner here. I've owned property since 1985. I recently bought an oceanfront house at 1029 with the intention of having Jerry Baker build a spec house for me because I'm an entrepreneur. However, with these new fees, I'm not going to build it unless we revert back to the old system, our fair system. I've done some assessment of other towns nearby, and we're going to price ourselves out of the market. So building, probably not tourism, and some people don't want to hear this, but that's the backbone of this island. The builders, year-round, provide the economy, and it's a huge trickle-down economy. So I would ask you to please reconsider these fees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Brian?
Good evening, everybody. I am a builder on this island. I've been here since '99, built my first house in '99 on this island. Been coming here since I was a kid. These fees cannot be sustained. I don't know if you guys knew what they were when you passed this, or the outcome, or who it was gonna affect. And the first thing that came to mind when I heard about it was, who's this gonna benefit? Who's gonna benefit off of this? Is it gonna be anybody in this room? Absolutely not. I can't imagine. I get to thinking and digging a little deeper, and I finally figured out anywhere between, I don't have the exact numbers, and it's coming off of public record and hearsay, but it will benefit 95 to 100 people or lot owners on the island that never paid the original sewer share fee that I had to pay on 8 to 10 lots back in 2000 and whatever, and I believe it was $2,500, and I had to write the check. I don't know why that wasn't a mandatory payment, and I don't know why everybody got to ride it out until June 30th, of which it went away. At June 30th, it was $13,500. If you'd have collected that from those 100 people, it'd have been $1.3 million. How did they skate through and not have to pay that fee? But outside of that, the fees that you're implementing for bedrooms and $5,000 to $6,000 to hook on the water, and it's just, it's not sustainable at all. And I haven't, for me, pulled a permit since June 30th, don't have any intentions to. I have 7 lots under contract before July the 1st that I will not close on, and you're gonna have to explain to that family why I'm not buying them, because there's no way I can pay these fees. The houses aren't gonna appraise, the banks aren't gonna owe money on the fees. You know, you're adding $12,000, $15,000, $20,000 and more in some cases to the price of a house that the appraiser's not even gonna recognize. So how's it gonna be sustained? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, for the record, Brian Murdoch, 153 Sailfish. Gerald Brown?
Gerald Brown, 851 Aaron Landing. I said I'm gonna tone the bulldog down tonight. We're not here like we were the other day. And, because you folks have a really, you've got a task to do. And a lot of times it winds up being a thankless task. I've sat right there in the chair, so I know what I'm talking about, okay? But with these fees, first and foremost, I mean, and everybody's together, okay? It comes out of nowhere. I mean, when you're gonna put that I mean, the public needs to be more aware of what's going on, okay? And number two, I'd like to just let you ladies and gentlemen know, the manager of this island, y'all are his boss. You represent us, and he, you know, he does what you tell him, okay? You gotta have some steerage with him, okay? Get him under control, okay? Don't let him shove something down your throat. Tell him, well, we got to vote today. You have as many meetings as you need to iron it out, okay? And see exactly what's going on. But don't be fooled by him for 1 minute, okay? He's a bureaucrat. All of us folks sitting in here tonight, we put money in the town and we take very little out. He doesn't put 1 penny in and he takes a lot out. That's the bureaucrat, okay? Be very careful with him, okay? Because what he's tried to do here was make you look kind of like you didn't know what you were doing, okay? And, you know, that's what, you know, just know, he works for you. You work for us, okay? And like with these fees and everything, it would be wonderful if you would at least put some time in here and let's relook at it, have a couple of comments on it, and let the public decide. This is our home, this is our right, okay? Each and every one that stays here, you know, it's home, you know. We rightly should have a say. I wanted to start a house, and, you know, I went to see Tim, and I asked him, I said, Tim, what's this gonna cost? It was 60-some hundred to 22,000. I called a bunch of my buddies all over the state. I couldn't find it. They said, say what? They couldn't believe the cost of the building. You know, I talked with some folks at the Department of Insurance, and when I told them $6,000 or $7,000, they said, bro, that's much higher than in most municipalities. Okay? We've got a great inspections department. You see what I'm saying? We've got a good leader on it. You know what I'm saying? And I know for a fact he was left out of a lot of the meetings that went on with this. He's got more knowledge about it than David Hewitt will ever have. And David should have rightly listened to Tim. He told him from the get-go to Dick. You understand? And it would, nothing would tickle me more than if you would take this meeting in an executive session afterwards and fire him and let him go somewhere else. Because he truly deserves it, the way he's treated you like he has.
Rhonda Dixon,
You know what, Alan, my point's already been covered. You want me
Okay.
to get up and speak?
if you don't want to speak, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, you ready to move on to the next item? All right, thank all of you for expressing your views. We're on number 7, Tran Way. Ms. Ferguson, did I
It's okay.
omit you?
I was just
I
going to
apologize.
Introduce the reason that he was here, but he can handle it. He's-
Christie, that's fine.
No, go ahead.
I'm Fran Way, I'm a coastal engineer with Applied Technology Manager. We're the coastal engineer for the town of Holden Beach. Over a decade now, we're helping out, we're doing annual monitoring and everything, making sure the beach is healthy and kind of staying on top of all the nourishment projects and especially related to Lockwood Folly Inlet, where there's been a lot more pressure by other communities, the county, Oak Island, to kind of use that sand source that has always been, traditionally been used and through agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers, has been worked out to the town of Holden Beach. First of all, just in terms of the nourishment, about a year and a half ago, almost a year and a half ago, the town, had 2 nourishment projects, the Central Reach project and the East End project, and put about 1.5 million cubic yards of material on the beach. Really helped out a lot, especially since Matthew did quite a bit of damage. So this year, the annual monitoring, we saw the beach equilibrated, where we build that construction berm, and then we know that the beach is going to go into the near shore the way we build it, and it's just kind of the way it works. And looking at the 1-year survey data, the beach did equilibrate as we expected. So the upper beach, you did lose some upper beach, but it went into the near shore. And in terms of total volume, it was actually pretty interesting. from last year to this year, no nourishments, we calculated a gain of about 400,000 cubic yards. And so that came out of, we looked a little deeper into our analysis, and then we usually stop our analysis at about 1,500 feet offshore at negative 12 feet of water. And as it turns out, and that's usually, obviously the most sand moves up in the near shore of the surf zone. Out, 10 feet of water, the sand still does move around. And obviously with Matthew, it really kind of did a number actually out there in the 10, 12 foot contour. And so we saw a gain of about 400,000 cubic yards that moved back inside that 12 foot contour, which was really interesting. And it's a good indicator that the beach is kind of not just the nearshore beach and not just the nourishment, but that some of that beach that sand that was lost offshore to Matthew is coming back onshore. So that was actually a pleasant surprise. And we're still working on the annual monitoring report. We're going to try to finalize it here in the next few weeks, and we'll get the monitoring report to the commissioners here. But that was a nice surprise to see that about 400,000 cubic yards moving back into the system. And then for Lockwood Folly Inlet, there's been lots of news and articles in the paper about several different operations where they're trying to take sand or manage the inlet, and we're just trying to stay on top of that, and we want to make sure that the town of Holden Beach should have priority to that sand. We believe that firmly. In terms of the east end was really the only section of beach that kind of lost material this year, and so we really need to kind of keep up on the east end, and it does need a little bit more attention than the rest of the beach, and we need to really keep on top of that, because any kind of changes to the system or moving sand and putting it elsewhere could even go and further damage the east end. So, it's a really important thing, and we're gonna stay on top of it, and we're gonna work with the town to make sure that, that they're the highest priority, as they should be. And that's it.
Commissioners?
I just have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned the articles in the newspaper, and it's very concerning, obviously, not just to me, but everybody here in the room, as well, where all this stands. And I'm not too sure that the information that we're being fed is really good information. It may be something that the media wants to put out to folks, and I have nothing against the media at all, please. And I'm not Donald Trump neither, so, but there is a legitimate concern here pertaining to both the mouth of the inlet and also the 200,000 cubic yards of sand that, is
Yes.
permanent.
It seems.
I don't want to put you on the spot. But,
Yeah. Well, I've coordinated with Christy and David quite a bit, and they coordinate with the other municipalities. It sounds like, some of the articles I've read have been basically pretty accurate. The numbers do change, but that's, based on kind of how Oak Island did it with the 30,000. There are about 3 different projects, and we're gonna talk about this on Thursday on the special Lockwood Folly Inlet, but because it is more detailed, and there are about 3 different projects that sand-related projects in Lockwood Folly Inlet, and, so there's different articles, different volumes, different areas, the outer ebb shoal, the inlet crossing, so we're just trying to follow all 3 of them,
Good. We'll stay tuned.
yes,
Thank you.
Friend, that
Yes.
400,000 cubic yards,
yes.
was that the length of the entire island or
That
within
was.
Central Reach?
That was, that was the entire island. The Central Reach actually did, it showed the majority of the gain. It showed about 80% of that gain,
Okay.
but there were some other sections of the beach. That's the entire beach.
So
Yeah, the
roughly
Central-
300,000, 320,000
Yeah.
cubic yards within Central Reach?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it was pretty even actually on the entire shoreline, but we saw it the whole way, except for the east end. And then the east end gets a little more complicated because you go into the negative 12 contour, and obviously the negative 12 contour gets way out there because of all those ebb shoals.
Commissioners, anything else? Thank you very much,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
Chief Wally Lane?
Good evening, everyone.
Mhm.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. I'll be brief, because my thought is the rest of the meeting may not be. And fortunately, I'm in a position where I can be, so that's what I'm gonna do. It's been a fairly typical summer, other than a few weeks ago, we did have a drowning. Young man from Charlotte. Rip currents were bad for like a week and a half. And unfortunately, he was in the water at the beginning of that and apparently, didn't make it. That situation could have been a lot worse because 2 other people went in after that person, and one of those folks ended up having to go to the hospital as well, but made it okay. That's always unfortunate, and we don't like that here, but you can't predict it, and when the rip currents are bad, it can happen anytime. My man, Jeremy Dixon, is only a few short weeks away from finishing up at the FBI Academy. I talked to him earlier this evening, and he said, Chief, I'm under a lot of stress. He said, we down to the meat and potatoes now, and we're having to do presentations and all this and that sort of thing. Anyway, long story short, he graduates on September the 14th, and I'll be so glad to get him back. Be happy when he's back. Otherwise, there are no major crime waves on the island. Everything's fairly normal for summertime. 2 more weeks to my favorite holiday, which is Labor Day, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Chief, I just have one question. Last month, we had about 100 parking events, and this month, we only have 22. How do you,
That's a good thing.
just everybody decided they weren't going to illegally park this month versus last month?
Well, if you think about it, July's the busiest month,
All right.
so traffic is slowed down. Schools up north are already starting back, so it hasn't been as bad. It really hasn't been as bad.
This report is the month of July, which should be the most activity we have.
Well, the numbers you guys got last time were everything from Memorial Day through the 4th of July. 120 some.
Okay.
And it's slowed down since, and me personally, I'm glad of that.
Yeah, okay, it just, it's a weird, okay.
I think maybe the word may have gone out or something like that, or maybe the,
Well,
enforcement
you
and
know,
the signs.
It's posted on this, and it's posted on the sign when you come across the
Yeah,
bridge.
I believe
Good,
all that helps.
Good,
Yeah,
Yeah.
all that helps.
Good.
And, I mean, we've done a lot of things to educate folks. I mean, parking areas are listed on the website and that sort of thing. The sign says, parking areas are listed on the website. Folks, hopefully, they can
got the
read,
message.
they can read signs that say parking, no parking, hopefully. Anyway,
Okay.
I'm just glad it's better than it has been.
Anything else? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Freer, Mr. Butler, you're gonna talk about item number 9 on the agenda, system development fees.
Yeah, I'll start. Thanks for everybody who addressed this. I've gotten a lot of email and talked to a few folks on the telephone, and I kind of collected my thoughts, and I'll be brief. The adoption of the ordinance imposing the substantial increase in the town sewer and water fee needs to be reevaluated and highly likely repealed and replaced. We don't know the number. Tonight, I'd like to see if we can return the sewer and water development fee to the status quo before July 1, at least nearly as the state law allow. And I see the attorney shaking her head, but
I think I've advised the board on that. You were required by House Bill 436 to adopt new legislation. The fees that were being charged before were considered illegal.
Can you people hear in the back?
No, not at all.
The previous charges that were being levied were illegal, and you were required by House Bill 436 to, if you were going to charge system development fees, you were required to adopt that legislation by July 1st of 2018. So you could repeal what you adopted, but you cannot reinstate the previous fees charged.
okay, with that understood, then we need to consider all of the issues, one of which is a new water fee. We need, and as required by the HB 436, review all of the options, and listen to the public comments based on all of the facts. That, and I think that then necessitates calling a special meeting as soon as possible. The town was required to use a professional engineer to calculate a maximum permit fee scheduled based on a complicated formula, but it is not required to impose the maximum fee. What I didn't know was that the current fee, I didn't know the current development schedule fee. And therefore, I didn't know how big the increase adopting the calculated maximum fee would entail. I just assumed the proposed increase was not as significant, obviously, as it was. And I assume that, most of the builders and real estate professionals, most directly by the fees, assume the same thing. It did not occur to me that the board would only be presented a nearly threefold increase in the very significant fee without pointing out the fact that that fact to the board and the public. That fact was not apparent from the engineering report or the ordinance that was voted on. And we should not have assumed, we should have asked the hard questions, demanded answers. Too often, we allow the board to be presented with up or down proposals rather than presenting us with a range of options. Too often, proposals are presented the last minute, up against some real or imagined deadline. Too often, questions are brushed aside. Unfortunately, this mistake with sewer and water fees per HB 436 can be revised. We can do a repeal and replace. But the implications of the maximum fee was not understood, and no other options were permitted, or presented, I'm sorry.
May I?
Sure. Should I go next? Yeah, thank you. All right, well, hopefully everybody was able to hear the attorney, because that was one of my questions that I was also going to ask. Have the county explain why it is not possible to convert back to the previous fee prior to July 1st. So, thank you, Noel, for answering that. The implementation process for rollout of the water and sewer development fee requirements outlined in HB 436 was skewed for a number of reasons that have already been stated. Looking back in hindsight, I don't want to be a Monday morning quarterback, nor do I attempt to be a Monday morning quarterback. But there were a number of issues that surfaced from both the commissioners and the public after the commissioners voted. I have to be perfectly honest that the information outlined in the consultant's report was not an easy read. I think even during that particular meeting, he indicated that the calculations were a very difficult calculation. So that should have tipped us all off to that. But I've read the report, and I've read it about 12 different times, and every time I read it, I learn something different in that. But that's just me. At the time of the presentation, there was a lot of information to digest in the session. It would have been probably more helpful to provide options or possible alternatives that better help to understand and justify the rationale of identifying the development fees. I have since learned that a number of steps within the process could have been handled differently. I have a few suggestions, and let me go over those with you. Number one, there should have been more time and a process implementation plan identified that would have helped for a successful implementation. Number two, finalize a question and answer document that will help to explain HB 436, which is currently underway, and we will check and see the status of that, because as soon as we have that, we need to call a special meeting. Number three, what original information was given to McGill identifying the basis for calculating the development fees? To include a full understanding of what the numbers mean. Number four, plan to have a special meeting that would be dedicated to explain and reviewing the contents and highlights of HB 436. This would also include how the equivalent unit, ERU, fee of $20,577 was calculated for a 3-bedroom dwelling. Number five, remember that if an individual did not pay the required SOAR fee, my understanding is the fee has to be paid before the building permit would be issued. Number six, town staff needs to be involved on the front end of the development process so they can provide their expertise to help with a smoother implementation. Number seven, based on previous input at the commissioners' meeting, there needs to be either clarification or an understanding of what a habitable living area is defined as in House Bill 436. It is our responsibility to implement this bill, and the expectation from us is that our inspector will receive the correct information. Habitable living area is defined as a room or enclosed floor space used or intended to be used for living or sleeping. Number eight, I've already discussed, and thank you, Town Attorney, for answering it. And thank you for everyone for being here this evening and expressing your views. I appreciate it.
Ms. Pat?
Yes. I would like to make clear, I understood the report. I understood what the numbers were. I understood what an added bedroom was going to be. What I don't understand, even today, is why during the public comment period, nothing was said. Nobody asked questions. In the absence of comment, in the absence of reservation, silence is consent. I come from business. I've gone to the government before when they proposed something and said, this isn't going to work, because it's my job to say, you've put something out there that isn't going to work. So you also bear some responsibility for where we are today, because it was out there. The report was on the web for, a couple months. It's a March report. Honestly, we're going to go through it again. We'll go through it again with you. We'll listen. We'll do the right thing. But please, when you are confronted with something like this in the future, stand up and speak during the public comment period. Let us know what you're thinking before we make the decision. Because if you don't say anything, then my opinion is you can bear this, what we're proposing. Thank you.
Okay, I agree with Commissioner Kwiatkowski. I am not going to sit here because there's objection to what we voted on and tell you that somehow I didn't realize what I was voting on. I knew what I was voting on, and you knew what we were voting on if you took the time to read the report. There were 3 clear instances in that report, on the first page, on the next to last page, and on the last page, where it tells you it's going to cost $20,577. It's no surprise. Even if you don't know how they got to that calculation, if somebody told me some cost that I was paying at $13,000 was going to become $20,577, I would have asked a question. It was posted. You had 45 days to read it. You people are professionals. You come here and tell me that I've been railroaded, that I've been told how to vote, when you haven't taken the time to do your homework. and now you're blaming it all on me. Take some responsibility for yourself. Look at what you did. You built for 35 years, you sold real estate for 25 years. You should have known what the effect was, and you should have picked up the phone then, and you should have been at the meeting before we voted, because it's a lot easier for us to look at something when you come in with your professional ability and give me the advantage of that. But you come back after it's done and go, my God, I had no idea this was going to happen. Shame on us all. I'm willing to look at it again. I don't say it's perfect, but it's certainly what I voted on. I knew what I was voting on, and you should have known too.
John?
Obviously, you can see we have some disagreements. I have two things that I want to make clear tonight. And the first one is, in last meeting, I made a comment about support that I thought I had, an understanding I thought I had gotten from somebody in town management. I was misinformed. And I owe apology to the town inspector, because it suggested that he had done something that he hadn't done. I got to tell you that I believe the town inspector, his honesty and integrity is not in question. So if I misled you last time with a comment regarding him and his involvement in the process, please discard it. I now view it didn't happen. The other is, while you may be at fault for not having showed up or anything, I got elected to look after your material for you. I see it's my fault. I've been at this for 65 years. I just had a birthday, and I just turned 65 years of working in public. I should have known better. I didn't ask enough questions. What I didn't understand is what the impact would be. If you had come earlier and you shared that, I would have known already, and then I would take action. But I didn't really understand how big of an impact it would be on the building. I view my job as making the finances of the town solid. That means we need building to go on, that we get more taxes from building, and a lot of those buildings will be rental incomes, which will bring rental income that we depend on to pay our bills. So I'll do everything I can to make sure that we don't have a fee that's going to have a detrimental impact on the property values of the town, on your work environment for the builders, and for people's desire to go build a house. I want them to be able to build here. I also live here, and I love the place. My wife and I love it. It's like heaven for us. I want it to stay that way. So I can't speak for anybody else on the board, but I think we will repeal the decision we made. We will have a meeting to do that, and we will have one to replace it with something else. I will endeavor all I can to make it as reasonable as it can be, and yet get what we need done, but have no adverse impact on the builders that work here or on the property values and our tax income. To me, those are critical. Thank you.
Mr. Freer, Mr. Butler, is there anything else on this item on the agenda you want to say, do?
There isn't an action item. I think the action item doesn't happen tonight. We were told the one action item that we proposed. But what we're going to do is, again, schedule a special meeting as soon as possible. We'll make that known to the community. We want everybody involved in that special meeting, us, our consultant, McGill. We still have the Q&A that was, we started, and we got some input from the community as well, for that, the FAQ, so we can have something to base on, and we'll go and dive much deeper, look at options that are available to us, what the impact of those options are, and we'll do this as soon as possible.
Okay.
So keep an eye out for a meeting, a notice for a special meeting.
Okay, we done with this item?
Yeah, I'm good.
I think so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 10 on the agenda, Mr. Clemens, Public Works.
Good evening.
Yeah.
I gotta give everybody some good news, so like everything I see right now, we've got balloons and spear all over use our sewer system. Construction is underway. Contractor actually mobilized the end of July. And to date, so far, the columns for the upper level have been poured. That's all good. By the end of the week, placement of the forms for the elevated slab should be complete. According to the engineer's schedule, the upper level building should be completed by mid-September, or actually start mid-September, with a completion date of October. Scheduled delivery for the pump station equipment to go in the upper level is mid-October. And so far, what I have in the engineer says we're on schedule, and he doesn't foresee any issues causing any delays or problems at this time. But with that being said, the good news is it quit raining. I'm actually surprised that we got as far as we did with the weather we've had. I know that's kind of ironic. The last time I gave you a report, I actually mentioned something about the weather, and I think I must have jinxed herself, because it hadn't quit raining since. With that being said, that's all I have this time. I really been out of town for about a week and hadn't had time enough to get everything together. By the next meeting, I'll probably have a little more details on finances and everything to go along with that.
I don't know whether they have an answer to this, but the last time you discussed a potential issue with the obtaining the steel.
Yeah.
Is that behind us, or?
I'm thinking that's behind us, Joe, because I
Good.
did see on his email there that they actually is gonna start the replacement of that, steel under that, upper level here in the next few weeks, so that kind of tells me that the steel, came in.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chris, you know, it's worth a few minutes to have you up here and give us an update. And it's good news if it's a very short update and you have the
It'll
other
probably
problem,
get a
so.
little more exciting, maybe the next time I have some pictures.
No,
and stuff.
excitement, we don't need excitement
I'm
always, so.
talking about something good to look at rather than just
Okay.
keep hearing a project that people keep talking about, you never see anything happen. It seems like it's a long process just to get started, but we're underway, and so far it's all good, but
Great.
we hope it stays that way.
Good.
I drive by it every day. I can see progress.
Yes, ma'am. Let's just hope the weather cooperate through September, we don't have any major storms, and we can make it through that. Yeah, I've got my fingers crossed.
Hi, can you handle that?
But with that being said, I do have something else that I'd love to discuss with you, and it's sewer related, if I may.
Okay.
I'll try to be brief. I know y'all probably remember when McGill done that sewer study, and they actually identified potential problems. It spoke about the fact of candy canes. I've been getting a lot of questions about candy canes, and I think people think that if we have those candy canes elevated, that it's gonna give us the ability to be on this island when we got 36 inches of water on the ground. But I don't, as being an operator, I don't see that that will ever be possible. And also, in that report, it identified that it would cost about $1.5 million to do that, and would be very little return. As an operator, the way I see it, if that vent pipe is 36 inches off the ground, or 36 feet, when I got a wet well sitting down there ground level, that's not really gonna do me any good, because I still have to shut the system down.
Right.
You know, and if we do have a few places where we have a washover or something that we can isolate them on an as-needed basis. But with that being said, all new construction and remodel, we actually require from the elevator. We're not making it problem any worse, but at this time, I don't feel like we should follow through and try to undertake raising all those vents. I don't really think you get that much in return. If we had that kind of money to spend, I would be well spent on some telemetry or something like that, to make it easier for the staff doing field work.
Okay.
That's about all I really got to say on that. If anybody's got any questions on that, I'd gladly answer them if I can.
I'm good.
No, we're good.
Thank you.
Question?
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Clemens.
Right.
Number 11, Ms. Pat.
Okay, we had a special meeting on August 6th to go through again all of the open points on the, I call it the overall trash issues. And we said that we would try to come to decisions on August 6th, but we would bring it to this meeting so that the public would have a chance to comment on some of the decisions we made if they disagree with them. I haven't received any emails, I didn't have anything in my box, and nobody today has said anything about page 61 that was put in that addresses our decision. So I'll just go through quickly, because this is what we as the commissioners said on August 6th, and if we still are all in agreement, this is what we should be actioning the town staff and the town manager to go ahead and start on. First, the recycle program will remain voluntary, but to make it more attractive to rental property owners in particular, recycle needs to be picked up weekly during season, not bi-weekly. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work when it's every other week. The rest of the year off-season, pickup will still occur every other Tuesday. And town staff has already gotten a new estimate of what it will mean to the cost if we go to this pickup schedule. Yard waste program, it was shown to be utilized more than was thought originally. The decision was made that we will continue it through this year, through the fall, continue to monitor it, see if it is still as attractive to people as it was in the spring season, and we can discuss it again in the first quarter of 2019. For rental house properties, there is an audit of the number of solid waste bins currently at rental properties underway. It's anticipated, barring no major storms and disruptions, that the audit should be completed around October. Once we get the findings, we can discuss whether or not we think there are enough out of sync houses in terms of bins that it's reasonable to think that that is one of the causes of having so much trash on the island this year. If we don't see very many deviations, then we may need to discuss whether or not there is some other way to measure how many trash cans you have. But first, we want to see what the audit shows. The town is also going to move to notify non-compliant rental property owners to obtain the right number of bins as they identify properties are out of compliance. They don't need any more direction from the commissioners because it's already covered in the ordinance. The rollback program remains under consideration. Options can be discussed further in Q1 2019. 2019, probably rollback is going to stay what it is. We still have to find some sort of a solution so that those cans get back to where they need to be. We are saying that rollback for next year should be both empty and full cans. Leaving full cans at the curb isn't serving any purpose. They're there on Saturday, they're there on Sunday, they're there on Monday, they're there Tuesday morning. They need to just go back up to the house. If all of the bins are full and they're back up under the house, I'm gonna assume that the new renters are going to call the management company and say, what am I supposed to do with my trash? And it'll get taken care of. I think it's a better solution than leaving them down at the curb to continue to molder.
Pat, excuse me. So the number 6 is, you're just saying that that's the intent for the Q1 2019?
Starting in 2019,
Okay.
yes.
Is the intent is only to leave it like it is, only Ocean Boulevard?
At this point in time, yes. The
Okay, that's
rollback
what-
program stays the way it is.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
This is gonna be a 2019 challenge for us to work through, what can we do without significantly increasing our
The
costs.
cost, yep, okay, just wanted to clarify that.
And really solve the problem.
Yep.
The existing solid waste ordinance it's old, it's out of date. It really needs to be updated to a standard that is more representative of the island today, not the island 25 years ago. We also have to make some clarity around what is out of compliance, what is a fine going to be applied to, how will it be done. Town staff will be leading this. Commissioners, please send your ideas to the town clerk by the end of August. It's possible we might have something for the September commissioners meeting, definitely by October, but it's gonna take a while, and again, the town staff's workload and whether working right will play into this. And then the town will provide a summary of the changes that will be enacted in 2019 to property owners and rental property management companies in time for you to include the information in your 2019 rental property information packages. Do all the commissioners still agree that this is what we want? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the only question I have is the rollback program, but that's not till the first quarter. I mean, I think I made a statement before that when I drive down, whether it's Ocean Boulevard or whether it's Brunswick Avenue, east or west, sometimes I have to dodge garbage cans. Either the wind knocks them over or whatever. So I'll just mention that again, that, you know, let's at least have a phase one maybe, and then maybe a phase two. But to look at all the trash cans all over this island all the time is certainly something that I'd like to see taken care of.
I think one of our issues is gonna be education, especially for people who own property, only come on the weekends and take off on a Sunday when we're not having that bi-weekly garbage pickup. If you roll it back, it'll stay back under the house. If they don't find out, they need to arrange with a neighbor. On our street, they do that. We all work out that we roll them back for them and that sort of thing. But a lot of them, I think, don't have that, they don't know they need to do that. And I think we might need to educate a little bit.
Well, David, is there any way to have rollback of full cans implemented now? Or is it just with the current contract for rollback, it's just not gonna work?
I'll defer to Chris on that one.
I've never asked that question before, but I'll do my best to find out. I mean, we just bid it out on the rollback. We didn't specify whether the can was full or empty, you know, it's based off that number, so I really don't want to say.
We'll do what we can. But 19, it will be full and empty. Okay, then, David, everybody agrees, so this is the sort of proposal and marching orders. Do you have any issues with any of it?
My comment would be on the amendment to the solid waste and recyclable collection. If that's,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, was that part of this agenda item? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It's just that y'all can't take action on that tonight, because of the change in the price, and the need to pre-audit the contract. We'd need to amend the fee schedule that charges that price, and also, which was gonna drive in a corresponding budget amendment. Small details, but, it's necessary in order to affect that. So that would be, I think it would be okay to bring that back to the September meeting if you so
Yes.
desire.
Okay.
And it's not really that big of a change.
It's not, but it's,
No, no, no.
in
I'm
order to
just
pre-audit it, I need to have
Yeah.
everything lined up.
It's less than we expected.
Yeah, I was thinking $25, that's not what we got
No,
back
we-
from
no,
them,
we
but
did, yeah.
they were,
Yeah, so this is good. Okay.
Are we through with this item?
Yes.
All righty. Commissioner Fletcher, number 12, Audit Committee.
In our last meeting, the board asked me as audit committee chair to go back to the audit committee and have them approve their bylaws, if you will, which should have been earlier, but weren't done. But they have done that, and the vote was 5-0 with correcting things that were in there, repairing some issues that were in there, and give you the following as a proposed bylaws for the audit committee. 1, with regard to the annual audit of the town's annual financial statements, the audit committee will provide oversight of the work performed by the independent accounting firm. Oversight of the work performed by the independent accounting firm will include the outside auditors will report through the audit committee to the Board of Commissioners. The audit committee or audit committee chair and one other member of the audit committee will meet with the independent accountants as often as necessary during the course of their work, as determined to be appropriate by the audit committee chair, to review progress and discuss any findings or deficiencies that have been identified. C, the audit committee will receive and review any draft reports
and provide feedback to the independent accountants prior to the reports being finalized. Reviewing the final report from the independent accounting firm and participation in the presentation to the BOC confirming that the audit committee has discussed the report with town management, with the independent auditors, and believes that the report is fairly presented. 2, the audit committee chair with another member of the audit committee or the entire audit committee may meet with any external firms hired to audit the town's financial statements, investigate any irregularity, or evaluate the town's internal financial controls or their implementation. 3, the audit committee will be cautious not to appear to represent the BOC in any way other than serving to conduct their oversight role. They will be careful not to interfere with the auditors performing their work. And lastly, 4, a quorum exists when 3 members or more members are in attendance. These are the bylaws that the audit committee approved, and I ask that the board confirm those.
I have a couple of questions for clarification. By statute, the board, the auditors, the external auditors must give their report to the Board of Commissioners. You as a board are charged with the sole responsibility of making certain that town staff and the requirements by statute are adhered to. That does not mean that you can't have an audit committee that provides oversight. It does not mean that the audit committee cannot participate through the process, but it is important that the audit committee is a conduit of information from either the auditor, the town staff, or to you. And I've sent y'all an email sort of giving you some, a thumbnail sketch of how other communities are using these audit committees as tools to assist the board, because y'all do have a lot of responsibilities. So the concerns that I have are, one, that the outside accountants are gonna report through the audit committee to the Board of Commissioners. The independent auditor is gonna be required to come directly to the Board of Commissioners. That doesn't mean that the audit committee can't receive a copy of the report, but the audit committee cannot make a presentation to the board on the audit, the outside auditor's report. The second question I have goes to the words in paragraph 2, investigate an irregularity. What does that mean?
It would mean if something had identified as going wrong with the billing system, the payment system, or anything at all, that they could organize, come back to the board and ask permission to initiate an investigation.
So I think that what scares me as a lawyer about that is it may make someone reading these bylaws think that they have the ability to conduct their own investigation. The board is charged with that responsibility. If the audit committee made you aware of an irregularity, and that's what should happen, the audit committee should make the board aware. The board should take action. The board should conduct a investigation. The board should hire somebody to conduct an investigation. I think that I think I understand the intent of the bylaws. I'm being a lawyer and asking questions because I don't want to leave them up for interpretation when I'm not in an audit committee meeting. That's my concern. But
Yeah, I think the audit committee on investigation viewed, if they got a report that something was awry, they would check it out first, and if possible, say everything's fine, there is not an issue at all. If there is an issue, they would come to the board and advise the board that it needed to do whatever the board decided to do, whether it be hire an investigator or.
so I think generally, bylaws of audit committees across the estate aren't so specific with the requests that are being made in these bylaws. The goal of the audit committee should be able to facilitate communication through town staff to the auditor, to the external auditor, and to make certain that the board's reports are obtained in a timely fashion, that the town is on track with providing the auditor the information that the auditor is required to look at. That's a checklist of information for a town audit. So private business very different, but for a town audit, they're going to come in here, they're gonna request information from staff, they're gonna sit there, they're gonna calculate, they're gonna say, I want some more information, and they're conducting that investigation for the board and then giving a report. And if they think that there's something wrong, they're gonna tell the state. So, then the local government commission's gonna be involved. I mean, that's part of the checks and balances. But this board ultimately has the responsibility to make certain that the information is being transferred between staff of the town and the auditor. Am I
Yes.
making sense?
Yes.
I understand that. The concern of the question that I have is that we currently have an internal control audit underway,
Yes.
right? And I haven't heard anything about it, you know, do we need to have, I don't care if it's just, everything's going fine. Or,
I haven't heard anything about it. I don't know if
Yeah.
that would have been made aware of where that is, but I think that the board can say, audit committee, we want an update on the internal control audit.
Okay.
And you should have that. The audit committee should make certain that takes place. And that means that the audit committee should work with town staff to make certain that all of that information is available to the audit committee to then present in a report form to the board.
okay,
I
that's kind of
had,
that's what I'm looking for.
I had a bit of the Part C on page 67, the audit committee will receive and review any draft reports and provide feedback to the independent accountants. I think that what really is you have the right to receive answers to questions, because providing feedback sounds as if you may be making suggestions interfering with the independent accountants. I think that anything in the draft report, you have the right to receive answers to questions. Now, if some of those questions are you sure this is accurate, and it prompts them to double-check things, yes, but the term providing feedback can be taken many different ways, and I don't think that we want it considered that you may be trying to influence something. I also was hoping to see in the bylaws about the reviewing the quarterly results, which the audit committee does, reporting it to the BOC, anything that you do as the audit committee before the yearly budget is finalized. Since there is the quarterly review, there could be a meeting schedule proposed, at least for the quarterly reviews, and probably with the timing of the way you know that things happen with the audit, the external audit, you could probably set something in an appropriate month for that in order to have a discussion as necessary about draft findings. And I also would have liked to have seen something about calling a special meeting, which a special meeting could obviously be called by the chair, but also I think that a special meeting, as necessary, could be called by 2 members. So I would have liked to see that as well in these bylaws, to finalize some of the basic rules that you're gonna follow and procedures you're gonna follow as well.
I think they'd be happy to amend them going forward, give you another version.
But I agree with everything that Noel said about the taking care about it is information flow to and from, but the decision-making rests with the board and the report. So it's.
The auditor always comes to the board with the final report. What I hope that the audit committee do is make sure that what they brought was not wrong.
Yes.
And Commissioner Fletcher, I would be happy to give you some of the drafts or some of the adopted bylaws from audit committees across the state that in looking into this, to send you all that email last week, so that you can use them as a guide, if that would be helpful.
It'd be fine. I've done others myself, but I'd be happy to have it. Yeah.
So you're proposing that we do another draft of this? My only issue, and I'm okay with that, but my only issue is we currently have an internal control audit taking place, and we're not getting any feedback from it. And that was requested
In the minutes.
in the minutes on page 7, and that is not happening. So So that's
Well,
why
that-
I'm a
that's-
little
That's on
reluctant.
me, that's on me as the chair of the audit committee. But I did not get invited to the kickoff meeting or to the meeting of the first discussion with the partner that came. I was only found out about the meeting after they happened, and to my knowledge, nothing's happened since then, except I was advised there wouldn't be any interim
No
presentations.
phases, they use the
No
word.
phases, as you did originally, that the town manager and the auditor had agreed to have one final report only, no phased reports. So I have nothing I can give you because I haven't been in any meetings with the town manager and the auditor.
Well, that was something we were trying to avoid. So,
Yeah, so I think what's the information that the board wants, because that should be easily obtainable.
so I think you're seeing a theme of, the board just doesn't want to see a final report. The board wants to, through the audit committee, for the audit committee to be involved in the process and understand the process and be able to get reports back in a timely manner, just not after the fact when the report is
Are
already.
there any
complete.
findings of concern?
Right, so has the audit committee asked and I don't know the answer to this, but has the audit committee asked the outside consultant that was hired to put together an interim report giving the progress of his investigation to date? Have the audit committee scheduled a meeting with him to review the progress to date? I mean, that would be the easiest way for the audit committee to get information to then pass to the board.
Well, what the audit committee wanted was some bylaws that enabled it to do that, with being challenged as to whether it had the right to do it or not. I asked to have an audit committee and was denied that based on the fact that it wasn't clear what our authority was. So the audit committee has written these to make it clear what authority it has.
You have been meeting for 2 or 3 years without bylaws. You have a charge from
We
the
did.
board in the ordinance that sets forth what your general role is. I think you should schedule a meeting and have the auditor come and provide an update.
We can do that as long as the board tells me that is my authority.
Absolutely.
Yes, since they
Even
aren't
if it's just
doing,
verbal.
since they aren't doing it in phases, we're not gonna see things in phases,
Yeah, yeah.
then it just makes
And
sense.
I'm sure that'll be easily achieved.
Okay, good.
I just have two questions. One is in number 2, it says the audit committee chair with another member of the audit committee or the entire audit committee may meet with any external firms hired to audit the town's financial statements, blah, blah, blah. Is that in some way outside the open meeting rule, that you would have a majority of a board meet?
It's recognized that that is a public meeting. If there's more than
It
two,
doesn't say
if
that.
there's more than two, it's a public meeting.
Well, but it doesn't say that, it just says you're
Well,
gonna
but
meet.
the-
It
Yeah, and I
doesn't-
think that's why you want bylaws that say when your regular meeting is, who can call a special meeting, what a quorum is, what you have, and some overview, making it apparent that this advisory committee will operate in accordance with the rest of the town committees, for normal procedures. It's a little bit different here because a lot of the communities, as I've said in my email, some of them have a majority, they have larger boards, obviously. They are comprised of more than one commissioner that then, serves as the audit committee, and that's to, sort of boil down information and then request staff to prepare information for the full board. Some of them have, specific roles from the outside community, CPAs, some don't. So, it's not the way, the number of people that you have, and it's not the qualifications that the folks have. I think that that's spelled out. I think you need to be meeting regularly and have bylaws that guide you in your operation. And I think that will assist you with getting reports and scheduling meetings, because if you always know that you have a regular meeting in advance of the audit committee making a recommendation to the board for who will provide the external audit that's required, then it will cut a lot of the scheduling aspects out of it. It should make it a lot easier for
Good. Agreed.
My second question was, the last time we discussed this, you had pointed out that the guidelines that we were looking at, that there were municipalities, there was a different set of guidelines that could be used.
Yeah.
But in the note that you sent to us last week, you didn't include any of those guidelines, so
And I'm happy to share them. I mean,
I think that would be beneficial if we could look at those type of guidelines to see how municipalities do it rather than
Absolutely.
private enterprise.
Absolutely.
But we don't have to wait for that. We can get information.
Schedule a
You're-
meeting with the audit committee and
Correct.
request the auditor.
Amen.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think the observation, the meeting thing especially, they'll be happy to do that, lay out the quarterly, because we already do the quarterly financials. Make sure those are set dates, meeting with the auditor November the 1st,
Table is.
or before November the 1st.
Yeah, yeah, I think you can schedule.
Yeah, they can do, I'm sure they'll be happy to do that.
Going into next year, you can
Yep.
get it set up.
Can do that. Okay?
We table this?
Yeah, we
Yes.
table this.
All right.
We table this till the next meeting?
Number 12, we've done, and number 13, Ms. Ferguson.
Good evening. In the early part of this year, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board did an exercise where they evaluated town-owned property for beach accesses and rated those for development. There was an opportunity for a pre-application for a grant with the North Carolina Public Beach and Coastal Waterfront Access Program. We did make it through the pre-application stage. Not everyone did, so we were lucky in that respect. But to move to the next level, it requires the Board of Commissioners to give their consent to send in a final application. The proposed access is at 289.5 OBW. And based on the estimate that we received, the total project cost would be $21,780, and we're requesting that this program pay $16,335 of that. So it's a 75-25 split, and the Parks and Rec Advisory Board did make a motion to send it to you guys, and they support the submission of the final grant. It's due by September 7th, so if you guys are in accordance with that, I just need a motion to move forward.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
Discussion?
No discussion.
I
Any
have-
discussion?
I have a question.
All right.
When the Parks and Rec, and I think you've told me this before, but I forget, did y'all look at just beach accesses, or did you think about waterway accesses too?
They just looked at beach accesses.
Okay. Which I guess in the future, we need to make sure we don't forget about the waterway.
All right.
All right.
We have a motion and a second, didn't we?
Yes.
Any more discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimous, Madam Clerk. Thank you for your hard work, Ms. Ferguson. Mr. Evans, number 14 on our agenda.
I've heard my name a lot, I'm a celebrity. Anyway, this is actually a request of the board. Y'all got there's some rules out there for committees and stuff that limits the time to 90 days, if I remember correctly. If you'll remember correctly, we approved to go forward with the CAMA land use process, which is gonna extend out into the 2-year period. We funded the first year of it, it's actually in my budget, y'all are aware of it. And what this does is what we're asking for is for you to approve for the planning board to actually be the steering committee that works with the land use plan, and also at the same time allow them to add stakeholders from the community. We're thinking 3, but the planning board may have a different number, but I was thinking a minimum of 3 to join the planning board to be that steering committee. We would review the CAMA land use plan on a schedule that our contractor has already provided to us. And with that, we will deal with the Camel Land Use stuff after we have our regular scheduled meeting on those scheduled dates. Like now, I think it's every other month that he's going to be coming. Me and Vicky has been working on this together. And so we just need to get y'all to kind of give us a consensus or an okay so that we can, maybe a motion that allows us to extend the steering committee beyond the 90-day requirements for your committees. Usually y'all end them after 90 days. And we also need the motion to allow us to add some stakeholders to the planning board to be part of that steering committee.
What's your pleasure, commissioners?
Yeah, sounds good. I just have a couple questions, because if this is gonna go on for a long time, and we can talk about more details later, but I'd like to see, you know, the plans and steps and some feedback to the board every once in a while. We'll figure that out.
We haven't had our first meeting yet.
I
He's gonna
understand.
come and give us kind of an oversight and tell us where we're going. We do have a survey out there already. The planning board is going to be looking at that along with the new schedule. What we do have from them, we haven't formed the steering committee yet, and so we've not looked at it yet, but I'm sure that you're aware that I will probably be bringing reports back with progress as we go along, because it is gonna be a long process. There's a lot of steps, a lot of stuff that's required through the statute. They're not as difficult as they once were, but it's still gonna be a lot of information and a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I figured. So I just wanted, you know,
Yeah.
and the survey, I've heard about the survey. Who's the survey gonna go to? Just homeowners?
They will send the survey out to all the property owners. They actually do that. Our contractor will actually send it out. Our job is to review it and to make sure that the survey itself meets any requirements that we might have.
Okay, so you'll be able to make sure it just goes to homeowners, not, you know, the
Yeah.
general public. So
No.
we don't want it to be
I'm sure they're not going to.
skewed.
They'll advertise it in some manner. We'll make sure we get it out there. But it's actually gonna be like an online survey. They'll be aware of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So do we need to make a motion of the two?
Yeah.
So moved.
We want to extend the 90 days, number one, right? Number two, they add stakeholders as required.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay,
Well, if you want to, just let the planning board determine the number.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have that?
Consensus, if that work for you?
Consensus.
Consensus is in agreement with both issues?
Yes.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
All right, they're gonna determine how many members they want,
Yes.
okay?
Vicky, do you have anything to add? I could have asked that, I guess, before they. Okay.
All right, thank you, sir. Number 15, Mr. Butler, Mr. Freer.
Yeah, and my apologies. I was kind of focused on another agenda item. I wanted to recognize the Pelican Award. I'm sure the newspaper reported it. I have a plaque, but I'll bring it to the next meeting, and we can talk about that at the next meeting to show everybody.
Any other two groups on the honor?
Yeah, and there were, you know, the HBPOA and the Dunescape POA were also recognized for a Pelican Award. It was basically, you know, leadership and dedication to keep the coast accessible to the public. And it was around not doing the terminal grind.
And also the Holden Beach Property Owners Association was recognized.
Yep.
So we really walked away that evening with three awards and that. But what's more interesting to me is all the folks up and down the coast, of the work that these people do is just totally incredible. And that, you know, you talk about unsung heroes. Well, there's a bunch of them in the state of North Carolina, protecting these beaches and protecting these waterways. So it was a great meeting. There's about 450 people attended that evening, and so it was quite a large crowd.
Yeah, Mr. Butler and I represented the board at that award ceremony.
And thanks for bringing the plaque.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's it.
All right, town manager report.
Yes, sir. We've got the beach and inlet board orientations almost complete now. I believe there's one member of that board that remains to be briefed up by the staff. Recently completed the open meetings and public records training for all of the boards. I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. I know that there was a conversation I had with Ann Arnold several months ago about needing training for different boards, and it kind of, sent off a light bulb that said, we really don't provide any subject matter training for boards. So I hope to bring that forward to the different boards on the different subject matter training that's available to them in the near future, as a longer-term goal to do that on a recurring basis. Canal dredging project, those solicitations and advertisements are on the street for dredging contractors. Had our pre-bid conference last week with 4 contractors showing up. Looks like we're on track for a September let date, but we're gonna need to make sure that we get sufficient responses back in time to meet the next BOC meeting in September. Just depending, if we come up short on getting 3 bids the first time around, we'll do a quick turn. And depending on how that plays out, I may need a little bit of tolerance in order to jam it in at the board's September date. Otherwise, y'all are gonna have to call a special meeting, and I would hate to lose the fall time on, a week or two in the fall whenever your dredge window starts November 15th, could impact the availability. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. I'm just giving you a heads up that hopefully we'll get qualified bids in and everything will be fine. We have received our DWQ water quality permit for the Scotch Bonnet site. Looks like that should start having construction there after Labor Day, and once again, that will require us closing the dog park during the construction of that, not only the construction of the facility, but also during the time that dredge spoils are being placed there, and it's probably going to take it a while to dry out. So it's the earliest that I could foresee that area being able to be accessed by the public is probably going to be after Memorial Day of next year, because you figure you'll be finished pumping April-ish time frame. It's going to take some time for it to dry out. Some of that is also going to depend on what type of material comes out of those canals, sand or mud. It's going to take some time. I just want to make sure that you're not going to be able to take your dogs over there the day after we stop pumping mud into that area. On a personnel note, Kendra McDonald has medically resigned from our front window administrative assistance position. We're going to be covering the window up there with a temporary service until a longer-term solution and our recruitment occurs for that slot. Officer Michael Hamilton has announced his retirement from North Carolina Local Government Service effective the 1st of November. He is the longest serving town employee. He's been with us since 1988, so he's going to hang it up at right about 30 years. And we're going to have a going away event for Michael. We just hadn't got it scheduled yet, and we'll get that word out to the community at large. For the board's consideration, as we start to ramp up for next year's budget exercises. One of the takeaways this year was to take a look at the compensation packages. I've started compiling some stuff. If there are specifics that you would like me to include therein, please feed that to me, and I'll make sure that I incorporate all those inputs. FEMA Matthew, we're still working on trying to get $350,000 from the feds on a closeout for that project. They visited with us, and about the third or fourth time that we've given them the same documentation, but there's about $350,000 more of federal reimbursements that we believe that we're due. 50-year project, we have not heard back from the Wilmington District Commander yet. When I say we, the mayor has sent the Wilmington District Commander a letter requesting an update on the status of the 50-year project. And to my knowledge, it hasn't. We do not have a response back at Town Hall to that request. All the rain lately has certainly illuminated the shortcomings in our stormwater system townwide. There are some recurring favorite hotspots. We have finished the work out in Point West with the outfall ditch going towards the waterway. The rough end of that has happened. There's some final grading that we got to do out there, along with some fine grading over on Coquina Drive. But that I think I saw the mini excavator was on station over there earlier this week. So that, and with some seeding, is what we hope to bring to bear here in the next week and walk away from that project. Whenever the staff intervenes with pumping water, it's got to be a public safety issue, like water has to be on the road, considered to be a danger for emergency response vehicles. That's kind of our litmus test. And this last, on the litmus test on deploying those pumps, we don't do that just with any little frog strangler that comes by. But when there's water out there that keeps the emergency services vehicles from safely being able to respond, that's our trip point on when we actually decide to take action and go out there and pump. The last couple of places that we did, I know if anybody went, I think it was about 300 block there on Ocean Boulevard. We actually had to do some intermittent closures. That's one type of intervention that we do. But then we also pumped some excess waterway down at the west end and also near Tide Ridge Drive. So I just want to illuminate that for folks. Whenever we do have casual water sometimes, we're not going to run out there and pump it off if we can anyhow manage to go around it. But when it's up to your kneecaps and we don't think that emergency services vehicles can safely get there, we're going to go out there with a pump and get rid of the water. But anyway, that's my report for tonight.
Any questions of Mr. Hewitt? All right, the mayor's comments briefly. The staff and I had a training event this month in regards to emergency planning as required, and I think we're prepared as best we could be. People seem to know the roles, and if you people will do your job and pray diligently, keep the storms away, that would be a big help. The complaints that I've had in the last 3 weeks, I've been in public service this town, I believe a total of about 2 decades. I've never had the complaints that I've had in the recent weeks. Hopefully tonight, some of those issues will go away. And thank all of you for making me aware of the situation that you feel so strongly about. And I think we'll figure out how to come out of this. I know we've got some good commissioners that will bring a resolution to that. So, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, you're up.
Okay. I'd like to thank everybody for coming here. I appreciate your input. I appreciate all the notes and letters we got. I would have appreciated it if I had the benefit of that information before we had the vote. I would hope that the realtors, the builders, would be as involved in many of the issues that we have here on the island as they are tonight. And I hope to see you at more meetings expressing what you think is the best way for the town to go. I took this job so I could do some good for the town. As the other commissioners said, I think we all love the town. So my vote, at the end of the day, whatever it is, after I listen to all the new information we have and all the input that you have, is what I believe is the best for the most people that own property and live on the island. If my vote changes, it'll be because somebody brought me information that I did not have, not information that I failed to consider when I voted the first time. Thank you again for being here.
Ms. Pat?
I agree with everything that Mike has said. I'd also like to remind everybody that we are going to have a special meeting in September to discuss, we're going to try to do some 3 to 5 year projections and planning, looking at costs, but also revenues and anything we might be able to do to increase our revenues, because not even discussing infrastructure and what we're going to have for the long term. Remember, we have an objective for our sand fund, and we have to figure out how we can do that over the next 5 to 10 years. How are we going to save that money because the budget is tight? So I hope all of you who are so interested in how we can make this island stay a great place to live, keep the beaches up, keep our infrastructure strong, keep our economy strong, will be able to come to that meeting and listen and offer some opinions. If anybody has ideas on ways that we could increase revenues that we don't generally think about, experience from other places, if you have ideas on ways that we can control costs, shoot me an email, let me know. But we will be having that discussion, and I don't think it'll be the last one we have.
Joe?
I'd like to also thank everybody for attending, and especially those folks that took the time to get up and express your views. I certainly appreciate that. And also, I'd like to, I'm not going to be able to attend the Inlet Beach meeting on Thursday, but I just wanted to throw a punt in there about it, that if you want to get involved with that beach, because we're in the sand business. And, it's important for all of us to stay involved and be apprised of what information we have, because we all can read certain things in the newspapers. And again, I'm not picking on the newspapers. And she's probably going to hit me on the way out the door. And so if you're not doing anything this Thursday, the Beach Inlet Committee would certainly welcome you to be in attendance. Thanks again.
John?
I'll take one more chance to thank all of the people, and it's a lot of people, that wrote their views on this issue that we're dealing with now. They were extremely well written. I began to suspect that somebody had a professional author back there, because all of them were very, very well written, but they were effective. You brought it to the point. It was polite. You made very good points, and I've confirmed them. Everything that you've said, I can confirm now, and they'll make a difference. So in the future, also, you need to get information to the commissioners. Send them this message. Send those emails. Think it through. Give them your inputs as much as you can. Give them all the facts they can, so that we make decisions with all the information that we need to make them with. But I appreciate it, and thanks for tonight. All the support of coming out and sharing with us. We appreciate that.
Peter?
Yeah, I too appreciate the input, but remember, this is the start. We still have work to do to revise this fee structure. So we'll call the special meeting, and we'll make sure that we encourage your input. Please come, and I think we're going to try to make it as open as possible. We'll make it as interactive as possible. But I also wanted to clarify that as of today, as we were told, by the law, that the fee is what it is, what we enacted at this time. So time is of the importance that we address that as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Public comments on general items. Anything that you want to say about any topic, you'll be recognized by me. Come to the podium and give us your name and address.
David Bond, 1171 Ocean Boulevard West, also live in Raleigh. 3 topics we have discussed tonight. How can we help get Ocean Boulevard West paved? The road is falling apart. We know about it. I live in Raleigh. Has anybody called the governor?
This part of the meeting is not supposed to be back and forth, but with the commissioner's permission, I'll answer the man's question.
Please do.
GSATs, which is the committee that oversees and interacts with the DOT, on that, and I've been reporting on a regular basis that Ocean Boulevard NC 130 is scheduled for 2019, March 2019. That's what I'm being told. Again, that's the schedule for repaving.
Good. Second item, I'm been curious, again, I've had property here since the 1980s. How come we don't have recycling and solid waste at the end of the public walkways, containers?
Point of order here.
Yeah.
It's not an exchange. We can make notes and
Okay.
take your information under
All right.
advisement, which I'm sure the clerk will.
Okay.
Okay,
I'd like to advise.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who's next? Ms. Rhonda?
So I'd like to, I'm Rhonda Dixon, 348 Serenity Lane. I'd like to go back one more time to item 9. And I would like to say that this is a room full of incredibly intelligent and talented and capable people. And I understand that technically the process was followed for the system development fee. But as a couple of the commissioners have said tonight, that you fully understood, read and fully understood. If you fully understood the impact of what these new fees would do, I question how you voted in favor of the resolution to pass this. I really question that, given the stifling that it has done to our building environment, to our real estate environment, and how it will impact the future of this island and the health of this island. So I really question that. The second thing is that I also, all of us would appreciate if we could have the special meeting where a vote takes place to resolve this in some way. I know we can't go back, all the way back to exactly what it used to be, but to have a special meeting as quickly as possible, because building is stifled on this island right now. And the third thing is, I want to go back just one more time and talk about those 96 parcel owners who never paid their original sewer share fee back in the early 2000s. All of us, maybe not all of us, I don't know how long everybody's been a property owner here, but over 2,000 people, 2,000 parcels paid that sewer share fee back in the early 2000s. There were 96 parcel owners who chose not to pay that sewer share fee. And interest and fines have been assessed with that. Those fees were over $13,500. So whatever is decided about the system development fee and whatever fees move forward, those parcel owners should be required to pay those fees. That is just not fair.
Amen.
Thank you.
Anyone else will speak? Anyone? About anything? Good or bad? Yes, sir.
I'm not good at public speaking, but I'm getting my point across. Mr. Fletcher, Mr. Butler, Mr. Fear, thank you for your comments. Everybody makes mistakes, but that was a critical mistake and it must be resolved. However, Mr. Sullivan and Miss Pat, I wish you could see your arrogance up there. It's really amazing, your arrogance. And if you all knew what you were reading, then you've got that not in my backyard attitude. If you will be my neighbor, you're gonna pay our gas. I'll decide if we're gonna be rich enough to have fun together. That's all my comments.
Anyone else want to speak about anything? If not, we're going to the next item on the agenda, which is number 20. And Madam Clerk, if you'll read the,
Executive session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3 to consult with the town attorney.
is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're going into executive session upstairs. I have no idea how long we'll be there, but we'll be back. You're welcome to wait until we get back, whenever.